can't see. Can you hear me, Yadubara, Prabhu? I'm muted. Yeah. Just give me a second here. Gallery. Okay, here we are. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up? All right. Thank you. So people will be joining momentarily. Just wanted to introduce the speaker today. He's an old friend of mine, Yadubara Prabhu, who is Prabhupada's first filmographer, I would say, and photographer as well as his wife, Vishaka. Unmute yourself, Yadubara Prabhu, so I can ask you a couple of things.
Got it.
So when did you join?
I first met the devotees in the summer of 1970, and I was initiated in October 71
And where did you meet the devotees? What town?
in New York City.
Okay.
I was given an assignment by a magazine to do an article on the movement, photographic essay, and Vishaka wrote the article. I did the pictures.
Wow. So since then, you got a very privileged position, which was to be a fly on the wall in Prabhupada's entourage. You basically had carte blanche to go wherever Prabhupada went and go into even places where others weren't allowed, like Prabhupada taking prasadam. He enjoyed taking prasadam alone, and you could go and film him there and take pictures and go while he was taking a massage and go on morning walks that people will kill each other just to be able to get close to Prabhupada and be in a morning walk. But that to you, this was routine. You could go wherever you wanted. So,
Yeah, Vishaka also even more unusual for her as a lady.
And did you feel special because of it?
I feel like a fly on the wall, like you described.
So,
Description, thank you.
yes, I mean, I could say many more things. You're a very good kirtaniya. Obviously, you did the Vrindavan Land of Krishna and Brighter Than the Sun. Those were both yours, right?
Brilliant as the sun. Uh-huh.
Brilliant as the sun. So these are the first incursions into the Hare Krishna filming endeavor that you probably shot and edited, right? Edited.
Yeah, I was cinematographer. Vishaka did the sound and she wrote the scripts. And she guided, I was hands-on on the editing and she was giving a lot of input at the same time.
Okay. And how was your relationship with Prabhupada? Because we read all about, like, for example, he will have a very one-to-one kind of almost equal base that, well, I can't say that with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, whereas to Harikesh, he will just boss around and, mostly chastise and criticize. How was Prabhupada's relationship with you? Like, how was he treating you?
I was very cautious and even nervous in front of Prabhupada because of his stature and his presence, his magnetic presence. So I just kept silent as much as I could and did my work. Prabhupada chastised me one time, and I treasure that as my best memory.
Let's hear about it. Thank you.
Well, first of all, how long do we have on the Zoom call?
Until that last person falls asleep, and maybe
there's no time limit.
not in the evening. I mean, some people may have to do some deity worship or.
No, I was thinking of the Zoom call itself. I heard there were 40 minutes.
I think we have, unless I don't know if Sachi.
It's
What's that?
unlimited.
It is unlimited. Okay, so we have an account, so there is no
Okay.
no limit on this one.
Well, that's good.
Still, I mean, we are not going to talk too much more because we want to see your work. But
Yeah.
tell us about Prabhupada chastising us. Actually,
Pardon.
I had a conversation with what's his name, Hari Sori. We were sitting at a breakfast table at a kirtan festival in Sweden, and I asked him, tell us an embarrassing story about your, serving Prabhupada. So he said, really? You want to hear that? So I said, yeah, yeah. And so he told a far out story where he locked Prabhupada in his room and just
Yeah,
left.
remember that story.
Yeah, yeah. So go ahead.
We were on a morning walk in Denver in 1975. There was a fad kind of that year or the year before of going on diets to improve our health. So I went on a diet and it failed miserably. So Tamal Krishna Goswami was kind of putting down these diets on the morning walk. He ended his talk with, he said, Srila Prabhupada, we should all die eating prasad. And so everyone kind of agreed with that. So I thought, Prabhupada started walking again. I thought I would add my 2 cents. And I said, yes, Prabhupada, these diets are useless. Prabhupada planted his cane, turned around, looked me straight in the eye and said, the diet is useless or you are useless.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful lesson. That was very deep. Actually, if you think about that, I wasn't taking responsibility. I was blaming it on the diet. The diet's useless. I was the one that embraced the diet, that adopted the diet, that believed in the diet. As most people don't, they don't take responsibility. And ultimately, they don't take responsibility. As devotees, we must take full responsibility for who we are and where we are, how we got here, and how to get out. So it was very profound.
Plus, just like Sanatana Goswami's body belonged to Lord Chaitanya, your body belonged to Prabhupada. You couldn't just mess with it.
Yeah. Responsibility is a big one.
All right. So, having done this kind of tete-a-tete introduction of Yadubara Prabhu, who everybody knows, or should know if they don't, I should actually. There is a video in Ukraine where we were actually there in the same video. You lead kirtan first, and then I lead kirtan, and has like 150,000 hits or some ridiculous amount of hits. And it's not because of me; it's because of you. It's your kirtan. It's a kirtan that you learn from some British devotee that has
And that was the chorus kirtan.
what's that?
Chorus kirtan.
Yeah, yeah. It's called canon actually. That yeah. Technically speaking, yeah, it's a very nice one. And if you, I'll try to look for it, and we'll put the link on the chat. So please take it away. Thank you for agreeing to do your thing, and we are eager to hear and see from you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
I
gonna.
just have to get some coaching on how to start the slideshow.
We have Agari Krishna who can give you advice. Go ahead and yourself.
Okay, here we go. You can see that.
No.
Krishna consciousness.
You have to share the screen. There is a green button at the bottom, but Agari will tell you.
Got it.
So Prabhu, I made you the host. Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Should I go full screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can just click play. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was always amazed at the stories early on when I was a investigative photographer and journalist. When I first came to the movement to do my first assignment to the temple in New York, I just asked everybody how they joined. It was such a bizarre scene, the the whole, dancing on the streets and shaved heads and dhotis and saris. I couldn't imagine people taking that big jump into another culture. But so anyway, this is my story. I don't like to talk about myself. I sort of about Prabhu knows. But here, I know my story best, so here we go. This was my first exposure to the temple in New York. And I had an experience that I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't looking for religion, and coming before Jagannath, Subhadra and Baladev, I had this understanding, this epiphany, or whatever you want to call it, that this is my eternal occupation, to worship the Lord. And that was that's what kept me going. We should all think about what has kept us going in Krishna consciousness and meditate on that regularly. So it's keeps us here. After that first article was published, I went back to school. I was a master's degree candidate in photography at Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. And I decided to, after my exposure to Krishna consciousness, I was very attracted right from the beginning. Ishaka wrote the article. She wasn't attracted at all. She was an atheist. So there was a bit of a strain right from the beginning after meeting the devotees. So I decided to go to India in December 1970 to do my master's degree in photography on Hare Krishna movement in India. So I met Prabhupada. He was on his World Sankirtan party. And you can imagine the incredible effect of devotees Western devotees arriving in India after the Indian history of suppression by the British and the Muslims. It was just incredible. They just couldn't believe it. They were thrilled. This is one program. Actually, many of these shots are taken from still frames on movies. There's a lot of, 24 frames a second. We have about 40 hours of film. You can imagine how many still pictures there are in that film. So many of these are taken from stills in the movies. This is a favorite picture. It shows, it actually visually demonstrates Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prediction that people from all races would come together in Harinam.
Can you give us some of the name on the picture?
Yeah, Tamal Krishna Goswami on the left, Dinanath Prabhu in the center, Bhanu Nin Brahmachari, Bhanu Swami. Tamal Krishna Goswami's wife in the back, Madri. And just on the right of Dinanath in the background is, I forget his name, but he lives in Vrindavan now. At this particular kirtan in Mumbai, Prabhupada jumped off the stage and started dancing with the devotees, and everybody just went wild. Prabhupada's plan for India was genius. He had these huge programs in every city he went to, and devotees traveled by train all over India. This is Yamuna Devi at Mathura Junction Station. They didn't get off here, they kept going, but at every juncture, they stopped and jumped off the train and had Harinam. And hundreds of people would gather around to look. Anybody who's been to India knows how that works. So very quickly, the whole of India knew about the devotees. Similarly, in the West, Prabhupada had Harinam Street Sankirtan for hours and hours, 10 to 12 hours every day in the major cities in the country. And everybody very quickly found out about Krishna consciousness movement. This was an incredible reception in Surat. Devotees received. Devananda Prabhu in the front, Yamuna Devi, some others. Oops. This is what I looked like when I arrived. I crow amongst swans. So they would go out, actually the newspaper every day printed the route through the city for 10 days. And as a result, in those morning Sankirtan parties, people would come out and decorate in those particular sections of the city. They would decorate the streets and have wonderful receptions for the devotees. This is the second night that I was there. You can see this is one street that was completely blocked off, just masses of people. Again, they were just thrilled to see the devotees. You see how the streets were decorated. And just see the eagerness of the people and the masses of people. This is one small street. This is Bhanu Swami getting blessed. It's Malati getting a garland and Rivati Nandan back at her. Malati Devi. Everyone was in ecstasy. It was just unreal. And for me, a photographer, taking pictures of the devotees on the streets of New York and seeing the devotees ridiculed and just ignored pretty much, to come to this was just incredible. Prabhupada would take morning walks every morning by the side of the river. I visited Surat 5 years ago, and everything is built up. It's just buildings on both sides of the river. You see Durlab leading the Boy Scouts in Kirtan. I don't know if you can see it. This on the right-hand side of your screen, you just see us, right? Anyway, Durlab, that's a close-up of him. You can see it dangling off his arm as a movie camera. Some of these frames of film or these still pictures are taken from the movie films. This was an engagement outside of Surat in a village. Prabhupada was extremely animated during this lecture. I took probably a roll of film on all his beautiful movements. It's Nanda Kumar Prabhu, his servant secretary. This was taken in that village. If you have any questions as we go along, please speak up. This is Mangal Arati in Prabhupada's room, which is very small. There are 25 devotees jam-packed. And it was the most ecstatic Mangal Arati I've ever been in. Very often he would ask Yamuna Devi to lead. And Prabhupada was tireless. He would go to at least 3 engagements per day, sometimes 4. I was taking black and white pictures because that was the art form of the time. That's all I took in as a graduate student in photography. That's Koshalya Devi in the background. Prabhupada loved her singing. He asked her also to lead quite often. She knew the Isha Upanishad by heart. She would sing it. The second man on Prabhupada's left, on our right, was our host, Mr. Jariwala in Surat. He had a 3-story home, and he just sacrificed anything and everything to host the devotees. He was such a wonderful person. When we were leaving, he thanked all of us for coming, and he paid obeisances to everyone. He said, "If I have committed any offenses, please forgive me." And he started to cry. And Prabhupada looked at us all and he said, "This is a Vaishnava. instead of offenses by him, there were none. We committed so many offenses. Brand new devotees and not knowing the culture, and I'm sure you've heard stories. This is another place we journeyed to, the Kumbh Mela, 1971, February, in Allahabad. Prabhupada asked us to do three things while at Kumbh Mela. One was Harinam every day, deity worship, and prasadam distribution. There's another lineup. There's the Chutanandas just in back up on Prabhupada's left, and then Giriraj Das Brahmachari with the blanket over his head. It was extremely cold.
Why don't you point with the arrow, as you say the name, just to show with the arrow who is who.
I don't see my arrow coming up. Right on the left with the drum is Madhavisa. Prabhupada called him the king of Kirtan. And Tamal Krishna Goswami next to him, Aravinda with a blanket over his head, Madhuri just in back of Tamal Krishna, Rivati Nandan just in the back of Tamal's head, the Chutananda with the wrap around his head. I don't know the person in white. I forget his name. I do know him. Then Giriraj with the blanket and the Yamuna Devi, and I think it's Hansaduta, although our pictures are covering up the right side of the screen. Now this man was so enthusiastic every time he met Prabhupada, he would play obeisances and get up and start jumping with his arms in the air. Prabhupada loved him, actually. Very happy to see him. And you can see baby Saraswati on Shamsundar's shoulders in the upper left corner of the screen. Baby Saraswati was a complete hit in India. She would dance on stage at these huge programs. She would come up to people and say, and pull on their dhoti or sari and say, guess what? And the person would say, what? And she would say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then she would run away. And Prabhupada said she was a great preacher. Anyway, I don't remember any other Sankirtan parties, and that's why Prabhupada asked us to go on Harinam every day. There was millions of people there. And very cold. Prabhupada stayed with us in a tent. He could have stayed at the Gaudiya Math, where he served for many years. He lived in Allahabad as a businessman. He could have stayed in a hotel, but he chose to stay with us. Again, it was just extremely cold. This is one of my favorite shots of Prabhupada, again, taken from a movie frame. So the general in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan army, leading the troops. We're actually going to the Gaudiya Math all in rickshaws. This is the Gaudiya Math where Prabhupada served for many years. And I believe he donated deities, but I'm not sure. Does anybody know? I think it's the Milamrita. Yamuna Devi, I forget her name, Southern Mataji. And here we are in Benares. It was Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, and there was a big parade through the streets. And Prabhupada was drawn in a chariot by horses, white horses. Very beautiful scene.
Who is with Prabhupada there?
Devananda. I'm there just to the right of Devananda. Still got long hair. I came very slowly. Anyway.
When the first picture of you with the mustache showed up, one of our devotees yesterday said dashing. That was his comment on the on the chat box.
That's Jayapataka Swami in the lower left. Hansaduta with a yellow Prabhupada hat in the middle. And Dinanath Prabhu in the upper left corner playing Mridanga. Great Kirtaniya, Dinanath Prabhu. If you get a chance to hear some of his kirtans, please do. He's actually, last time I saw him, he was in Vrindavan. And he gives very good classes and leads great kirtan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The story behind this shirt is interesting. The Mataji from San Francisco, I believe, she made Prabhupada this shirt. And she was wondering what type of collar she should make him. So she decided, she thought that Prabhupada's a cowboy, I'll just make a Western collar. So he wore this shirt all over India. These are all stills from movie frames. Just amazing quality.
When you met Prabhupada for the first time, what did you think?
I was so covered, I didn't think much. I could see that he was a very powerful person. And again, I was nervous around him, cautious. Anyway, this is Prabhupada's one of his huge programs in Mumbai, the famous Cross Maidan Pandal, where tens of thousands of people would come every day. From morning, there would be a lecture in the morning, and then exhibits. People would wander through the exhibits and participate in kirtan, and in the evening, a huge, huge program where tens and thousands of people would come. This is where Prabhupada picked that Western devotee, that sadhu, out of the audience and asked him to come sit on stage. And of course, that was Radhanath Swami. And you can see Prabhupada, knew he was there, and he was way in the back. So quite mystical. He asked Gurudas to go fetch him. Again, people were just thrilled to see the Western devotees. There was another person who came. His name was Dadihartha Prabhu. That's where he first met Prabhupada, at that Pandal. He was a Canadian devotee, and he recalls in our Following Srila Prabhupada DVD series, he speaks that he couldn't understand Prabhupada's lecture so well, but he got one point. He understood one thing, and that was the idea of surrender. And he wasn't ready for that, but later on he did. So one of the nights of the 10-day Prandal, there was a wedding ceremony on stage. This is Vegavan Prabhu on the right from Sweden, and I forget his wife's name, from Australia. And people were just thrilled to see this international marriage on stage. And Prabhupada commented, he said, "This is the real United Nations." And everybody cheered when they heard that. This is Subal Swami performing the sacrifice. And you can see that Western sadhu, Radhanath Swami, in the very top left corner. This is proof that he was there. I don't think there's any photos. Has anyone ever seen a photo of him at the Cross Maidan?
I don't think so. That's the one with long hair, second from the left, right?
Yeah.
That's that's funny.
This is from the movie frame. So there's a lot of things in these movie frames that we can't find elsewhere. You figure out the calculation. 24 frames times in 1 second, times 60 in 1 minute, times 60 in 1 hour, times 40 in 4 hours. Or 40 hours. So back home was my girlfriend, Jean Papert. And she was a very, very good photographer. In her sophomore year, she published this book, Photomicrography, Art and Techniques. This was a very well-reviewed book by prominent photographers and photo historians. So I invited her to come to India. I was writing her letters, telling her of my exploits. And I was hoping she would come and become a devotee. I was at that point very captivated. And she was hoping, she was, her idea to come was to figure out what was going on with me, and she wasn't about to join the movement at all. So she came, and we wandered the streets of Bombay for a few days. She went to the Cross Maidan Pandal. We wandered the streets, taking our art photography shots.
Once I told you that I was intimidated by your wife, and you confessed that you were also.
Yeah, not then. This fellow was out in front of the Cross Maidan Pandal. He drew a lot of attention. I don't know how he did that. Because there wasn't any visible signs of his getting air. So let me go back. We met Prabhupada in his room at the Akashganga temple. Vishaka showed him her book. And then we explained to Prabhupada that we wanted to do another photo essay on a quaint Indian village, untouched by modern technology. And we thought Prabhupada might suggest a place to go. His first comment was that wherever you go, you'll get your camera stolen and they will cheat you. And then he said, best you go to Vrindavan. So before we went to Vrindavan, we went to Nepal and hiked for about 10 days in the beautiful Nepali mountains. And I brought one book with us, and that was the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, the original blue edition by Macmillan.
The foreword by Allen Ginsberg wrote the foreword on that one.
Yeah. This is Vishaka looking out over the plains, the river. And it was just magnificent scenery. And again, taking our art photography. And we found a little abandoned cabin, 10,000 feet in a valley, beautiful valley. And beyond we could see, range of mountains after mountains after mountains. I guess going up to as high as Everest. So Vishaka started reading the Bhagavad-Gita, and that was the first inkling she had of that she might be something other than the body or the mind. So that was a seed. We came down to Vrindavan, and Vishaka spent a lot of time in the temples photographing widows. We would wander every day all over Vrindavan taking pictures. And this is where her heart and mind was really changed in Vrindavan. And especially in these association of these saintly ladies. She could palpably feel their devotion and see their devotion in their kirtans. So this was Prabhupada's, again, directing her to the right place, Vrindavan. We were given one day notice as far as our Our wedding ceremony.
You're lucky.
Yeah, I just think of my daughter Haripriya's wedding, recent wedding. Months in planning, videographer, photographer, and so on. Anyway, there were no photographers there. There was only us. We didn't have our camera in hand. But Malati had the idea during the ceremony to get a shot of us. So she rushed up to Vishaka, said, "Where is your camera?" Vishaka directed the camera. She picked it up and took this one picture. Shyam Sundar is on the left with Saraswati in his lap. A few others. My memory is not so great. And we walked around Vrindavan with Prabhupada. This is the first tour Prabhupada gave the devotees of Vrindavan. And it was wonderful. There were maybe 25 devotees. We went to Vrindavan by bus, and Prabhupada was in the bus with us. And you can see Vishaka with her camera. This is in Jaipur. I'm on the left there holding Prabhupada's cane. That's Gargamuni Swami on the right. This is in Jaipur. This is where the Radha Govinda deities were installed. So before we get into talking about the films, after the tour of India and Vrindavan, Prabhupada, we were sent to Juhu, basically, to serve there in the very first days of the Juhu project. And we stayed there for 2.5 years. And my photography professor was wondering what happened to John, because I hadn't communicated. I was supposed to be working on my thesis. Basically, I dropped it. But after we returned and started our filmmaking, I turned in the Hare Krishna People, our first film, as my master's thesis. And lo and behold, it was accepted. They liked it. So I did get my degree. We got a letter from Karander in Juhu after about 2 years of serving in Juhu, and he wanted a film on the movement. There was no film at that time, so we decided to go back. We accepted the offer, and Prabhupada actually financed that film. It was $16,000 to buy all the equipment, the travel, and the time spent editing in New York, Brooklyn Temple. This is the gear that we had at the time. Very cumbersome. And this was only the film. It wasn't the audio. This is the audio recorder we had. Vishaka would take this out. And we did the whole film on a hand-wound system, where you could not get the film to go at the proper speed, 24 frames a second. So everything was kind of guesswork as far as where to cut the film and where to add the music. And compared to today, it's just Stone Age. Here we have our given names. Howard Wheeler was Hari Griva. If you get a chance to read any of his books, please do. He's a genius writer, wonderful writer. And he helped us on the script. This is a scene, again, all from movie frames. This is the scene at the BBT warehouse in LA. And this is 1973, only 6 years after Prabhupada got started the movement. And it's a huge operation, books being sent out all over the world in shipping containers. incredible what Prabhupada did in such a short time. This was marriage in LA. In India, Prabhupada, coming back to India, Prabhupada, we often think that Prabhupada didn't have much success in India in his preaching, but he actually had huge success, and we could see that by the fact that wherever we went, the major cities were invited by the intelligent class of men, the leaders in society. Prabhupada preached to so many people, so many leaders. It had great impact. This is one scene in the film in slow motion, with the cows sort of floating down the hill. And Prabhupada saw this and he said, "Can you fix that?" Because maybe he'd never seen a slow motion effect in a movie. We explained what it was, and he said, "Oh, that is okay." This is the last scene in the film of Prabhupada dancing at the Bhaktivedanta Manor at the installation of the deities, Radha Gokulananda. This is a later editing system we got into. My father helped a great deal. He was an American history professor. He met Prabhupada twice, and he donated this equipment, plus a high-end camera for our future films. This film was commissioned by Prabhupada, actually. He wanted something to show his godbrothers in India that he was doing the work of his spiritual master in printing and distributing books. So we asked for some presentation. So Rameshwar and I came up with the idea that let's do a film. The film was produced in eight weeks, which was record time for us. Brilliant as the sun. It took us all the way from the Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. We actually had Prabhupada speak a verse in the Bhagavatam, and Dravid is typing it up. And this is the verse we followed all the way through the production of the book. Wonderful verse. Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun. This was the BBT at that time on Venice Boulevard, right next to the temple in LA. And they had this board where they would track the progress of each book, going through all the different steps of production. And again, just like filmmaking at that time, this was all very tedious. Everything could be done instantaneously on a computer these days, very quickly. This Mataji would type up all the verses and the purports. This is Archita Prabhu, who's still serving at the BBT today. And this cassette would be inserted into that machine to get a printout of the page. That would be photographed. That's Madhusudana Prabhu doing the photography. And then we tracked one painting going all the way from start to completion. And then the cover would be photographed and laid out, and finally in print. That's Jagannath Sutta on the left, Rameshwar Prabhu, and what's his name? You know him, Sarvatma?
I can't really see him.
Yeah, it's hard. I should know his name again. Memory. Here are the BBT trucks delivering the containers, books going out all over the world. Wonderful reviews by professors, Princeton University, and the biggest names of colleges. And the final scene is Gopravinda Prabhu approaching a business person on the street and distributing the book. And this is live sound. We had him wired, and I was in a building across the street. You can see there they are. And you hear the sound of him preaching and distributing the book. Of course, the businessman was a devotee. And yeah. So I took that film to India. We had something at that time called the Fairchild projector. This whole thing fit in a suitcase. You can see it collapsed. And it was like a briefcase, not a suitcase, a little briefcase. So I would sit in Prabhupada's room with this briefcase and show the film to anybody who came in. Prabhupada would greet them and speak to them for some time. And then he invariably he'd look at me and say, "Do you have that film?" And I would pull out the projector and set it up. They would just be amazed. Even if it was one person, Prabhupada would show it. You know, many visitors as godbrothers. The next film was The Spiritual Frontier, a documentary on New Vrindavan. How are we doing for time? Okay. Actually, before this film came out, we were in Denver with Srila Prabhupada, and we set up lights in front of his Vyasa to film him. We had just come from LA, where we filmed Prabhupada extensively for a long time. We stayed in LA for a long time. Actually, maybe not then, maybe 10 days. But we did extensive filming of him. So then he went to Denver, we followed him, set up lights in front of his Vyasa. He came back after a morning walk, and he was visibly disturbed by the lights. And afterwards, he called us in his room, and Brahmananda Swami was there. He said, whether I'm sitting on the Vyasa here or there, what is the difference? Indicating why are you following me and taking more film of basically the same thing. And so that kind of put a halt on our filming. But Prabhupada was concerned what we would do next. He didn't stop us, and that was it. And there was some discussion. I mentioned to Srila Prabhupada that Kirtananda Swami always wanted to film on New Vrindavan. So Prabhupada thought that was a very good idea. So we, that was the summer of 1975, and we went to New Vrindavan that fall and started this film. Mangalananda Prabhu did this musical score. Another genius, composer and film and performer. I was in Prabhupada's room. He played an album for Prabhupada with horns, lots of horns. Prabhupada appreciated it very much. He said, "You can play this in the temple." And there was, there were, Vaishnava songs with lyrics. This is kind of a trick shot we made in New Vrindavan. That's Advaita Prabhu driving the horses. We placed the camera in this position, and he drove right over it. I put the camera down and ran away. And he did a second pass with the camera pointing the other way. Beautiful time at New Vrindavan. End of summer, fall of 1975. Prabhupada was very pleased by the milk production in New Vrindavan. He would often tell people about how much they produced. I think it was up to 10 gallons a day per cow. Another trick shot with the squirting the milk in the camera, at the camera. We had a piece of glass over the lens. We actually showed the birth of this calf. When Prabhupada saw this, this was showed to Prabhupada at a premiere in Los Angeles. Kirtananda Swami came out and flew out with several devotees. Galadri Prabhu was with him. And he brought ice cream packed in dry ice. It was an incredible premiere. The LA Temple Room was packed. And when Prabhupada saw this scene, he kind of rose up out of his vyasasana. He said, "I want some." So afterwards, well, actually at the end of the film, Prabhupada was praising Kirtananda Swami for the work he'd done. He said, "No one could have done this except you." And he said, "For this work," he announced to everyone, "For this work, Kirtananda Swami will go back to Godhead." So there was one devotee in the balcony, and she was thinking, what about me, Prabhupada? What about us? And immediately Prabhupada said, "What to speak of Kirtananda, all of you will go back to Godhead." And he waved his arm throughout the whole assembly. So only by Prabhupada's mercy will we get that opportunity. You know, we grew up in Malecha families and committed so many offenses. And so this was the originally meant to be Govindaji temple, the first temple in New Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada wanted 7 temples, but it became the Prabhupada's palace because Kirtananda Swami wanted to give Prabhupada a place to stay. Unfortunately, he could never come for that, but he did come in his Murti form. And just all the work was done by devotees. They learned the crafts. These gorgeous deities, Radha Vrindavan Chandra. This is the last shot of the film. We rented a helicopter, and with great expense, and flew over the devotees on the hill, having kirtan. Oops. I just think of my grandson just got a drone. He's 12 years old, and this would have been so easy with a drone. So anyway, it gives me hope that filmmaking in the family will continue. He's got his own YouTube station. He produces videos, and he's very good. His name is Kunja Bihari Das. So this film was a request by the Bhaktivedanta Institute to produce a film demonstrating how life comes from life and defeating the materialistic arguments that life comes from matter. And they gave us some guidelines, and they pretty much wanted us to try to defeat their current arguments. But we figured if we did that, the film would be outdated because their arguments always change, as we know. So we decided to base it on the philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita, which doesn't change. So this was a dramatic presentation. We had 2 devotees dressed up, and that's Duryodhana Guru on the right and Agastya Prabhu on the left. And Duryodhana Prabhu played the part of a person who was a student in a biology class. Excuse me just a second. He was a believer in the materialist theory. And Agastya was studying Bhagavad-Gita in a religions class. And he was completely absorbed in the teachings, and they were arguing back and forth, basically. This is Damodar Prabhu as the professor of materialistic ideas, presenting as ideas. That life comes from matter, from a combination of material elements, produces eventually a one-celled creature. So that here we are in the biology class. He's thinking about what his friends had told him about life comes from this life. And here we dissect a person on this, walking on the street, all of a sudden he turns into a skeleton, and then we go deeper into his muscles and deeper, and we ask, where is life? And this is a montage of this is a newborn baby, a devotee baby, actually. It's a hand, just seeing the hands as the person ages. Up to the point of death. And then we show the surgeon on the operating table trying to bring a person back to life. These are all devotees, and this was set up in my apartment in LA. It was directed by a nurse who was an actual nurse in these operations. I forget her name, but she was really, really good. So anyway, there's all sorts of methods. They try to bring him back. They give him an injection. They pump his heart. They give him electric shock, and nothing succeeds. And so the dialogue is, once the spirit soul has left, there's nothing you can do to bring it back. And then we have a graveyard scene. And the priest throwing in the dirt. And I'm down there with a camera in the hole. And then the Guru is meditating on everything he hears from his friend. And finally, he's convinced that life comes from life, and there's a happy ending. Has anyone seen this film? I know Sarvatma, Prabhu, you have. Anyone else?
I've seen it also.
Okay, they're all on YouTube. I haven't put up any of them, but we're working on it.
We've seen the movie.
Sorry?
I said we've seen the movie. Sorry.
Oh, nice. Who are you?
My name is Anandini Lalita and Yashadeva. That's my husband. I just joined the slideshow now.
Oh, thank you. So that's the end of the presentation. This is Prabhupada in LA getting gardenias. The devotees, all they made was gardenia garlands. That was Bhavananda's order. Any temple president who came had to bring a gardenia garland, which Prabhupada loved. Some other beautiful shots in that.
What was Prabhupada's favorite flower?
Gardenias.
It was.
Well, he loved gardenias. I don't know about favorite, but at least when he was in LA. In the West, gardenias are such heavenly scent. Okay, any questions or comments?
Come on, Prabhus, you have a chance here. One of the stalwart associates of Srila Prabhupada is right in front of you. Ask anything.
Hare Krishna, Yadubara Prabhu. This is Venamadurya Das from the Pujari room right now. I have to go to the altar, but I just wanted to thank you very much for spending time with us. You brought me back to Ukraine, to that kirtan that Sarvatma Prabhu mentioned. I was there. And yeah, and right now I'm just reading the Chasing the Rhino with the Swami second part, right? Those pictures which you are showing, I'm just reading these, Surat and all these in Bombay, and it's just an amazing, just thank you very much. It just deepened my feelings for that time and for that amazing journey. I'm just completely thrilled, and thanks God that we still have your association. And yes, I did watch most of your films, and I'm very happy for those. And you're just getting better and better all the time.
Thank you, Prabhu, for listening.
So thank you very much. I have to now attend the deities. Hare Krishna.
Sarvama Prabhu, I'm sure you can fire away.
If you go to the chat, there is a question there. Do you know how to go down to the chat?
Oops, yeah.
I can read it to you, but if you go with your arrow down, you will see mute stop video participants chat. So if you could click on chat, you will see the questions that people post.
Okay, here I am back.
Okay.
Hold on.
You see it?
Oh, yeah. Dhruva's favorite kirtani. He likes when we play the kirtan in a barn. That's a riot. Thank you for your appreciation, everyone. Did Srila Prabhupada ever ask to see the pictures that you took of him? Hare Krishna.
Haribol Yadubara Prabhu,
Haribol,
Natagaraga. Hari
Nice to
Hari.
see you.
Yes, wonderful to see you. Many memories. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I was wondering about that when the one with Radhanath Swami meeting Srila Prabhupada at that in that park, and I was just a little curious. When you were taking those pictures, did you get to meet Radhanath Swami at that time? Because I know how I know the friendship goes back really, really long.
Yeah, I didn't take any of those pictures that we saw because those are all from movies. I was only taking black and white pictures. And I don't remember, I remember seeing Maharaj, but I wasn't introduced. Guru Das really befriended him.
Oh.
And, helped him, introduced, gave him Krishna book, and he was close with Radhanath Swami.
So much appreciation for your journey, taking pictures. It's incredible. You and Vishaka Prabhu. I mean, it's beautiful, so very beautiful. Can you share some internal things that happened for you during that time with Srila Prabhupada?
All we were thinking at that time is just how to serve him best. And it was a difficult time. Juhu was a jungle, as you know, from the accounts. And but actually it was one of my best times in Krishna consciousness, because we're just focused on Prabhupada, how to please him. And he paid a lot of attention to Bombay, Juhu. He came often. He actually asked me to write him once a week to give a report. I was the secretary in Bombay, early days. And we were fully engaged, just completely engaged. Sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and the few devotees did everything. They did worship, cooking. We just tried to do whatever we could to please Prabhupada. That was our focus.
I have a question.
Mm.
Did you have any other services worth mentioning that you had to do besides filmmaking, taking pictures, etc., etc.?
Well, in the beginning, in Juhu, we were doing, as I said, we're doing everything. And we'd help on the tour. We'd help now and then whatever is needed. But our main focus was photography in those early days. We were always wondering when we could actually use those skills in a professional way. We were sending films and pictures back to Karander, to BBT. And he liked what he saw, and that's why he invited us to do the first film. But after 2 years of service in Juhu, he wrote us a letter asking us to do our first film. And Prabhupada liked the idea. It was amazing. He financed it, $16,000 of his book fund money. So that we understood that he understood the importance of media at that time. Let's see if there's any other questions. Are we working on any new film or photograph projects currently? The only thing I'm working on now is distribution of the Hare Krishna movie. It's still going on all over the world. And the one thing that we could keep in mind is is the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's arrival in different cities and towns around the world. It started in 1970. 50th anniversary, it started in 1970, in 2020, sorry, 50 years, 1970. And it continues till 1977, I believe. I made a list of all those places. And my proposal is that we bring the Hare Krishna movie back into theaters and invite leaders of those countries where Prabhupada arrived to attend free of charge as a preaching engagement. And after 50 years, if we're still around, that's impressive. In many places, we're very well known and appreciated. So there's, I can send you that list of all the different places of possibility for celebration. And it could be, it doesn't have to be the movie, it could be anything, but the movie has had such a profound effect on people that I think it would be ideal.
Yadubara Prabhu, obeisance to you. I have one other quick question.
Yes.
Given that you've done so much in terms of filming Srila Prabhupada, and physically Srila Prabhupada is not with us, in what ways are you, or what specifically is Kunja Bihari doing in terms of filming?
What is he doing?
Yeah, how are you engaging him? What is the focus?
He's helping us put up our YouTube station. Putting all our films on YouTube. Because he's got his own station. He knows all this stuff. He's, extremely quick and quite smart. This is Rasa Mita's son and Shyam Kishore. Of course, they stayed in Gita Nagari. They love Gita Nagari. They stayed there for some time. I'd love to come back. We have some films of Prabhupada arriving in Gita Nagari. I'm sure you've all seen that. So there's no film at present that we're working on. There was an idea to do a film on Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's life. I think that would make a great film. Such a dramatic life he had, such a powerful personality. I think that will manifest someday. I hope.
I think you're talking with people about that, isn't it? Some of the devotees are connecting with you about it.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
We're gonna pick it up again soon.
All right, sounds wonderful. Thank you so very much. Thank you. I love the pictures of New Vrindavan. Brought back many wonderful memories.
Yeah. Nice to see you both.
Yes, it's so good to see you, Prabhu. Please give our regards to your wonderful wife also. As Sarvatma Prabhu expressed it, he was intimidated when he first met your wife. I was too. I remember that. Yes.
Powerful lady.
Yes, and you're powerful also, and at the same time, your loving mood is always encouraging, and inspiring. So we really, really appreciate you and all the service that you've done.
I appreciate you both so much for your service. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
You filmed Prabhupada's departure, correct?
Yeah.
So tell me what was, I know you probably had to have a detached approach, as you know, it wouldn't be possible to do the work you were doing at the time, yet you probably felt heartbroken because of the occasion. Why don't you revive, if possible? I'm not trying to be morbid. On the other hand, I just want to see what was if your feeling at the time when you were filming Prabhupada leaving this world.
It was back and forth between sorrow and focusing on on filming. I was on the camera and Vishak was on the sound. And Prabhupada's departure was glorious. There was huge kirtan, as we all know. And right up to the end, Prabhupada was preaching. I filmed him in his last days. I'm sure you've all seen that. There was controversy about releasing that movie, his final days. I actually held off on doing that for 15 years after Prabhupada's departure, because the GBC saw it soon after I developed it, or maybe a year after I filmed it. And they felt it was too intimate. But then over the years, I got so much feedback from devotees who felt left out. And Prabhupada, as we all know, invited everyone to come. Of course, practically that was impossible. So devotees wanted to see that. They wanted to be a part of that. I showed it privately over those 12 years or so, 15 years, to a few devotees, and they're very moved by it. Very inspired in their Krishna consciousness. So I decided to release it.
I must confess, I had the final lesson tape, VHS tape, for many years, and I couldn't bring myself to watch it. And very recently, a few months ago, Giriraj Swami sent me his book, I'll Build You a Temple. And I wasn't aware of it, but there was a full description, very graphic and very candid, of Prabhupada's departure. So now that I kind of cure myself through reading it, I think I'm ready to watch it. Are you gonna put it up somewhere? And because I don't have a VHS machine, or I don't know what a tape would be.
You've never seen it?
No, I couldn't. I was just.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea that it's been on YouTube. I haven't looked for it recently. But I didn't like the idea is up there.
Okay.
Pretty much, I mean, all our films are on YouTube, put up by others. And I was thinking once we got our channel up to take everything down, one devotee was adamant that you should leave it. You know, these channels are visited by, you know, some of them are very well known. They're visited by many people, and you know, whenever and however they get access to Prabhupada, let them do it. So my opinion right now is just to leave everything up.
And I think it's a good idea. Bhaktisiddhanta said that any mention of Hare Krishna is good, you know, and you know, he will count how many times the mantra was there in an article. They didn't care if it was favorable or unfavorable. So right. I think the same policy could be applied to this.
Yeah.
Well,
also that theme of death is something that we, you know, as devotees, oftentimes we're not so connected with it. And death and grieving and mourning is so very important, just like living, to learn. And what better way to learn from, you know, the Acharya. And you haven't done that. It's definitely a tool that is important for the devotees. I believe that. I believe that more and more and more, we are all going to embrace learning more about death and really not just philosophically, but being present to what it means to grieve and mourn, and just really embrace death like we embrace life.
Yeah. It's the final lesson. It's such an important transition. Most important.
Well, anybody else has any more? There is.
I have a question, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My name is Agara Krishnadas. I'm from Johannesburg. The first time I met you was when you were on tour for the Hare Krishna movie.
Oh yeah,
Came to the Santon Temple.
that's right.
So somehow or other I made it over the Atlantic. The order of my spiritual master. So I'm here milking cows. So Prabhu, I have a question with regards to occupational development and Krishna consciousness. Like a common experience with a lot of devotees is that they have education in a certain field of activity, but then we don't end up serving in that capacity. But in your case, it seemed like that you and Vishaka Prabhu had the determination to want to serve Krishna and Prabhupada, with your filmmaking specialization and expertise. So as young devotees, how do we, if one is motivated in that way, how do we stay on the path of trying to, in spite of being given so many services, so many responsibilities not in line with our occupational interests? How do we maintain that interest so that we can serve the mission according to
Yeah,
our
you can. I think in our case, patience was a very big, important factor, because we were serving the Jew for 2 years before, taking a few pictures here and there, before we had the chance to really perform our service that we were trained for. So if that desire is in your heart and it's a service that can be dovetailed, it will manifest sometime. The patience is an important part of that waiting period. In the meantime, become purified. We all takes a lot, for many of us, I speak for myself, a long time for purification. And that's really our main business. Whatever we do is to purify our heart and minds, where it can actually be a powerful instrument in preaching. And that takes time. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yadubara, there is another question from Queenie, asking about what are some of the most memorable memories with Srila Prabhupada, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. Just little, just some of my most moving times were just little things that, for instance, Prabhupada was at Kartikeya Mahadevi's. He was staying there right on the ocean in Mumbai, beautiful apartment. And Prabhupada would preach to a group of Indians, maybe a dozen Indian guests who would come in the evening to hear him. And one evening he was so powerfully preaching that this is the duty of every Indian to take up the mission of Krishna consciousness, become devotees and preach. And Prabhupada was practically yelling at them. It was, and they were sitting there just, I don't know what they were doing. But Prabhupada's intense desire to see the Indian people take up Krishna consciousness has come to pass. And so many of our temples have, so many Indian supporters, and sometimes it's there's lamentation, why aren't there more Westerners? But Prabhupada started it all by his powerful preaching to the Indian people. And it's coming to pass. So we should welcome them and and learn from them, many of them. Another incident in that same house was it was lunchtime, and the devotees were kind of mingling around, a group of devotees in the front room. And Prabhupada came out of the bedroom where he was staying. He just taken bath and massage. And he just looked golden, shining. And he walked past us all, and he looked at us and said, "Back home, back to Ganya." Just things like that were just moving. It didn't take much. I was with Prabhupada when when Mr. Nair walked in the room and offered the land the first time we met Mr. Nair. And I was thinking, this man is suspicious. He's nervous. He's sweating. He's shaking. And of course, we knew his motives. And Prabhupada knew it also for sure. The Prabhupada just accepted the offer, and immediately we took a taxi out to the land, myself, Tamal, Shamsundar, and Prabhupada. And nobody liked it. The Prabhupada proposed immediately moving there. And I didn't. I actually had experience in village life in Malaysia. I was a Peace Corps volunteer for 3 years, living in a village in Malaysia. So I didn't mind. But, this is okay. Anyway, that whole saga was just incredible. Let me turn to this. Yeah, that's some memories. There are a lot more. Actually, I'm trying to write my memoirs, following the footsteps of my good wife. Please bless my endeavor. There's a question?
Jai Hare Krishna. My name is Chintamani Devi Dasi, and I want to, as everyone has said, thank you so much for your mercy and spending time with us today and sharing the videos and your experiences. And on Sunday, we're reading in Gitanagri from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita for maybe the past year and a half or so. And so experiencing your slideshow today, as well as all of the offerings you made for 40, 50 years, has really, by your mercy, moved Srila Prabhupada deeper in my heart. So I thank you for your example of deep love of your spiritual master and doing whatever it takes to please him. So my question is, from all your many years of experience with Srila Prabhupada and as a devotee, let's say in your memoirs, is there one message, I know there's probably thousands, that you may want to offer us today as we develop our love and small attempts to please our own spiritual masters?
Yeah. It was actually the last words that Srila Prabhupada spoke to me. In Vrindavan in 1977, he said, people who are expert in one thing have a tendency to become expert in all things. Now become expert in Krishna consciousness. And that's a message for everyone. So that takes a lot of meditation and effort and focus. not easy. Sometimes a little scary. Yeah, it's a wonderful instruction. So thank you everyone for attending tonight.
I want to.
Hare Krishna, Yadubara. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I may just add the last.
Yeah.
Again, I just wanted to say that I remember how our spiritual master, His Holiness Devamarta Swami, was saying, watching you filming the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all, how you were focused almost in samadhi, and how that, that work has produced such a tremendous effect. I've been there, we did with Priya Kirti Prabhu in Czech Republic. I was there selling tickets and selling books right on that premiere.
wow.
That was the historical film building, Lucerna, which is the oldest film cinema in the whole Czech Republic. And, we had the full house. It was like sold. Of course, half of it were devotees, but then there were other people. And I just remember those people coming out, and I was selling books to them and giving magazines for free because it was 50th anniversary. And they were just transformed. I thought, this is just amazing preaching, just that film. So that work of yours, Yadubara Prabhu, I mean, we are so grateful, very much grateful. And of course, the books also. Niranjana Swami was saying when the book of your good wife was finally printed and published, he was recommended to read, a must read, So I've ordered it here to Gitanagari Library also. And after chasing the rhino, I'm onto it. Really to dive in. This is just
Thank you so much.
5 years.
I'm really happy you were at that premiere. That was a great video, great premiere. The film has had such an effect all over the world. And we had a great team. I mean, I don't consider myself a very good filmmaker, but I just keep going until I like it. and we just had a great team. Two young filmmakers from Australia, another devotee editor from Los Angeles, brand new editing for about a year, maybe 2 years. And the country that took the film was Italy. That was after the DVD was released. It was online. It was January 2020. And I did a tour of 8 cities in Italy. I went to Italy to release the film. I wanted to take Vishaka to England because that was the start of her presidency at the manor. But instead, the film opened in Italy. We got a distributor. The film opened in Italy, and I knew Italians would love the film because they like to sing, dance, and eat. It was a wonderful time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, well, I have a message from Parijata, said, I love Yadubara Prabhu's sharing and presentation. Please thank him. And this is certainly followed by all of us, thanking you for your time and your dedication. And please bless us that we can become followers of Srila Prabhupada and one day attain his lotus feet by hook or by crook. And
by mercy.
By listening to your kirtan.
Yes.
No.
Speaking of, I put on the chat, I found the kirtan, and it has 232,000 hits. So this is pretty major. And yeah, you led the devotees in doing a canon, singing 2 different parts at the same time. This is beautiful kirtan.
I know Niranjana Swami wasn't so enthusiastic.
Yeah, but we are used to that. He also mentioned a melody that he loved, and I forced him to play it with me on stage and at the Baltic Festival, and he was very embarrassed, but he did it. So there are things that he doesn't like, but we do them anyway, right?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna,
Yadu.
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
All the
Krishna.
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Bol.
Thank you.
Devotees, devotees, before you sign off, I just wanted to tell you that next week on Sunday, Malati, the original Malati, Saraswati's mom, Shamasundar's ex-wife, is giving the Bhagavatam class, so please tune in for that. And there will be many more speakers for both the month of February and March. And also, in addition to the Bhagavatam classes, there will be special speakers. Advaita Acharya's appearance will be addressed by Hridayananda Maharaj. On Nityananda Trayodasi will be addressed by Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Narottam Das Thakur's appearance will be addressed by Giriraj Swami Maharaj, etc., etc. So tune in. We will send you some more news. And again, our eternal thanks to Yadubara Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hari Hari.
You.